Hey, good morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix. I'm back again, and I apologize for being late today because I was up till about 4 in the morning just trying to catch up and deal with a lot of work stuff. I also was having a difficult time actually getting to sleep last night. So the result of that is I got some work done, and the other result is that I'm getting a bit of a late start today, and I apologize for that because I know being here, at least relatively on time, is an important thing, which I will endeavor to do moving forward. One of the things that came back is some very good feedback from people after yesterday's show, and I want to thank everybody that did send me some emails and some suggestions, and I'm definitely taking them to heart. And again, it was I think a how would I say this workable. Healthy in some ways exercise, and I hope I didn't piss too many people off. And that's all I'm going to say because it was a very cathartic and very, I think, good and powerful learning experience for me. So why don't we just get going? Because one of the things I do want to do is I want to keep these live streams at a reasonable time length, so you really get what you need. And I'm not, sort of meandering around and bantering and chattering. So I want to get to it. We're going to go about 45 minutes today, about 50 minutes, and the whole idea is kind of a follow up on yesterday and give you an idea as to where we are as it relates to, I think, things that are developing very quickly before our very eyes. And there's some good stuff here too. It's not going to be just doom and gloom. And we got EC 2181 Kaku win. There's 1-0 Dragon Jennifer Anderson. Good morning, Judy. Fub 77. There's Joe. There's Denise. There's Steve. What's going on, Steve? Nice to see you. The lovely and talented Joan S. Kestrel in the house. There's Sherry Lewin. What's going on, Ryan? Mr. Introspective Woodworker, Uncle Glenn. Hannah Marie. Let's give a shout out to her today. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, all you Leos out there. Leo's one of my favorite signs. Morning, Ani. Ani, I'll reach out to you today since you reminded me yesterday that I needed to speak with you. Fub 77. There you are. Nancy Dickerson, good morning. Diana Young, Frank Bry. Okay. Yeah, there's Shannon Marie. There she is. What's going on? We got Hannah Marie and Shannon Marie. We got it's a Marie last name convention or Marie middle name convention inside chat today. All right. So again, part of the feedback and part of the gnosis is that you guys want the meat, right? The fat on the bone. So let's get going. Dear blessed and holy Father, Mother God, of the great central Sun within universal light, which is led Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel. We ask that only the highest, best information, truth, and heart and wisdom come through this channel at this time, and that the qualities of strength and courage, of humor, compassion, empathy, flexibility, endurance, intelligence, and clarity be a part of our experience this day and always. And that any karmic residue that we share be clarified, purified, cleansed, and removed so that we can be sovereign as we leave this experience, as we entered, and so be it. Yes, Leo energy. Leo energy. We got Amanda Palmander. Hi, Amanda. And Kelly from Vegas rocking in, checking in. Kelly, I've been reading stuff about Vegas, not sounding very good. Not sounding very good at all about Vegas. They just canceled CES, one of the biggest trade shows on the planet. And it's when you go down some of these rabbit holes, it gets quite interesting when people tend to share their experiences about what it is to actually be a part of a convention in Las Vegas and be a vendor. And apparently, there's a company in Las Vegas that essentially bought the rights to run all the conventions in Vegas, and they charge you everything. Like you can't even bring your own stuff in yourself. You have to pay them to bring your stuff in. It's just just like everything. We've reached this kind of uh, this cacophonous crescendo of, how do I say it, influence or this kind of overreach when it comes to either policy or rules or laws, or that there's a level of complexity that society has. I don't even want to use the word attain, because that would mean that we've actually done something, we've actually gone somewhere. That there was a goal that we reached, and that's really not a goal that we reached. In fact, in many ways, I think we're headed backwards, which can be both positive and negative in some ways. I really feel like we've reached this kind of apotheosis point, this high water mark, and we've reached it a while ago. It's not like we reached it last week or last month or last year. I've been watching a lot of older TV, and some of the stuff I've been seeing or paying some attention to are reruns of Johnny Carson, interviews of Johnny Carson. By the way, if you really want to have some laughs and just really have some, if you are down in the dumps, or you find our situation a bit depressing, go back and go onto YouTube and watch Johnny Carson's interviews with Don Rickles. When Don Rickles hits the Tonight Show, let me tell you, shit gets funny. And since I'm an astrology geek, I had to look at Don Rickles' chart, and it makes total sense. Rickles was a Taurus with Mercury, Moon in Aries, sextile Jupiter in Aquarius, sextile Mars, early degrees Pisces. So you can see the quick mind at work with Rickles, and clearly he's an insult comic. But you can tell he's also a decent person at heart. But I look at some of the Tonight Show interviews, and not that it was like the pinnacle of Western civilization, but there was a thing there where people could say things and talk about things that you could never say things and talk about those things now. And also, Johnny Carson had a lot of creeps on his show. Like Bob Hope spent a lot of time on Carson, and Hope is a creepy, creepy guy. Very creepy guy. Oh, look, we got Chris and Steve in the house. So Chris, what was that song, Mr. about the broken wing? Chris has a broken wing. And we had a little face. You know what? I know what I love about the Chris and Steve experience right now is just how people have responded to Chris's physical situation. She took a bit of a fall in the garden. And so I gave her, I was FaceTiming with her last night. And while I'm FaceTiming her, Steve's on the phone with Glenn Streeter, and they're talking about, some healing devices for Chris. So, it just goes to show you that there's a very cool thing happening, and that we are, looking out for one another. We are taking care of one another. And I know that Emily and Laura were, definitely spending some quality screen time, phone time with Chris and Steve, and Joe, who I'm not sure is in the house, has been cruising by there. So this is great. I mean, not that Chris's injury is great. We don't want that on anyone, but the response has been fantastic, and so it gives me a lot of hope and a lot of optimism, a lot of positivity that the things that go out on the world that we see on a daily basis, which are fairly inhuman and cruel, that there are real humans left on this planet, and right now I'm staring at about 95 of them in chat. So there you go. There we go. Let's see. What about Rickles? You guys got anything about Rickles? That's the view with me. Rickles' great insult. His bluntness emanates love, as if someone cares. But Don, I guess I'm just I'm going to get to it, but I just have to say that I was not really a Don Rickles fan that so much growing up. It was like, I thought he was interesting, mildly annoying, but now I look back and I see the genius, just the absolute comic genius. And I can see that I can see what was, the neurons firing in the brain. Just incredible, really incredible. And I'll even go on record to say that Don Rickles is probably one of the most underrated comics in the 20th century. And there are a lot of great comics. Richard Pryor shows up a lot on those Johnny Carson shows. And Pryor is good. He's good. Pryor is good, but I don't know, man. The machinery inside between Rickles' ears is really something to behold. And if you're feeling down and you just want a good laugh, I'm telling you, you spend 8 or 9 minutes with Rickles on Carson, and your mood will change drastically, and you'll see. By the way, Johnny Carson, very complex person, very complex, but you could tell that he really really dug Don Rickles. And when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Carson. Starting around the 8th grade, I used to stay up and I'd watch Carson, and then I'd watch the Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder, and this went on all the way through my high school years, and I really probably was not doing my body any good by going to sleep at about 2:30 in the morning, unbeknownst to my parents. Okay, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is yesterday. I do the everything reading, and part of the everything reading is I dive into the dream spell, and the dream spell is the version of the Mayan calendar that was set up by Jose Arguelles, who's a very interesting character from a cultural perspective, and some people believe that he bastardized the Mayan calendar, which I guess you could make a case for, because he set himself inside the Mayan calendar, reset the Mayan calendar based on his actual assignation or placement in it, and then created his own system based on the Mayan calendar. This is one of the things that people don't understand. So when you dive into the dream spell, it is not the long count, as I said, with the Mayan calendar, but I use it because it was my first introduction to the Mayan calendar. I find that it is incredibly accurate. And when I look at the idea of systems and things that are developed, like say astrology, for example, or poetry, or there are things that exist, and then somebody comes along and they adapt and they develop and they innovate that thing. And you can see it with the inception of Western astrology, with Ptolemy. That there was this kind of way of looking at the stars and having this relationship with the constellations and the sidereal effect. And then Ptolemy comes along and he changes it, right? He gives us 12 signs versus 12 constellations, and everything beginning on the spring equinox. So I see Ptolemy as an innovator of a system, and the system that I and many others currently use. I see Ra-Huru, who, by the way, died right around the same time as Jose Arguelles, as another innovator, right? He comes in, he brings human design into the discussion, and a very, very, very interesting system, human design. And then after we have Ra-Uru and human design, we have this other system that comes in. It's kind of based on that. So there are people that take something and then they innovate it and they reinvent the system, or they have their own system. William Blake, the great poet philosopher, says, "I must create a system of my own or be enslaved by that of another," which I would tend to agree with in a lot of ways. And I am kind of at heart a Blakean. So I feel like Arguelles really fits into that category. And when we get into this idea of, well, this thing is not pure, this thing is not pure, I ask myself, well, is it effective? And what did they do with it? And Jose Arguelles did more with the Mayan calendar than anybody else did, with maybe the exception of Carl Kalaman, who I have interviewed before, and I actually really like, and he could not stand Jose Arguelles. But yesterday this is interesting, because yesterday I went on to the dream spell and I looked at the signature for yesterday, and I just want to show this to you because it really felt like that was the vibration. And this is a resource that you guys may want to check into on a maybe a semi-frequent basis or a daily basis, because when we get into the dream spell, we get into the Mayan calendar, we have essentially 260 days, 13 months, 20 days, based on synodic lunation cycles. And the Mayan signatures are quite interesting. And even when you dive into the dream spell, it has a lot of resonance. At least that's what I found. So yesterday, I looked at the day for yesterday. Let me show it to you. And we'll do today to kind of get maybe we'll do this as a kind of an ongoing thing here. Let's see what we got. Let's see. I have to make sure I have the right one. Give me one sec here. We don't want that. Process of elimination. Yeah, we want that. We want that. Now, let's just get this one right there. All right, nice and clear. Okay. So here we go. So this was yesterday, and then I'll throw it up there, and we'll do today. Maybe I'll do this as kind of on a daily basis and have it be integrated into our show. So this was yesterday, and we have. So I'll give you a little tour here, right? This is a very good website that I like. It's been around for a very long time. Starroot.com. You can figure out if you can go in there. You can actually type in your info right here, right down here, and then it will give you the signature on the day that you were theoretically born. Okay, so here we go. So this was yesterday, and I thought about kind of what I was experiencing and kind of sharing on the show. And I looked at this day, and what we have here is red self-existing dragon. And it says that red self-existing dragon is part of the Earth family. And this is actually my signature, which is Kaban, that is overlighting dragon. And the reds are all part of the Earth family. I define in order to nurture. So what I was doing yesterday, I was really trying to define what the fuck I was doing, and if it was really being effective, right? I define in order to nurture. Measuring being, I seal the input of birth with the self-existing tone of form. I am guided by the power of navigation, and that's navigation up there. That's Kaban. So this was part of the story yesterday, and as I went back in and kind of reassembled and saw where I was at, what I was trying to communicate. This actual this text spoke to me. It's like, okay, yeah, I am defining what I need to do or wanted, and I think a lot of people were. Maybe yesterday you were in that process as well. And this idea of measuring being, like you measure, what it is that you're doing. How effective are you measuring your being? And the self-existing tone of form, because we got 4, right? 4 is about form. And guided by the power of navigation. And it's always going to be guided by the sort of the overlighting glyph here. So why don't we do today? Let's just see where we are today in terms of the dream spell. So here we go. And yesterday in the long count, it was Keeb. So today we have white overtone wind, and wind is Ish, which is IX. It's all about breath and spirit. Okay, Ish. I empower. The empower part, right? The empower part has to do with the number, and the number is 5. 5 is always about empowerment. I empower in order to communicate. Sounds like Gemini. Commanding breath, I seal the input of spirit with the overtone, tone of radiance. Again, that's going to be connected to 5. I am guided by the power of heart. Why is it guided by the power of heart? Because the overlighting glyph or the overlighting energy here is that of oak. Oak is dog. Dog is loyalty and connected to love in the Mayan system. Of course, this is the dream spell, which is based on the work of Jose Arguelles. Today, in the long count, we would have 12 Kaban. Kaban being the glyph of the earth shaker, right? Kaban is also connected to things like earthquakes, earth changes, and sensing the changes in the wind, changes in the air. And here we have this is the wisp of smoke coming off copal incense. And so it is actually curling around in the air. And Kaban is connected to seeing which way the wind blows. This would be part of a ritual or part of scrying method by using copal incense. And they would actually say, well, we're going to find out which way the wind blows. And when you find out which way the wind blows, you can begin to determine things that may be theoretically in the wind. And so Kaban in the copal incense would be part of that. And over here we have Eb, E-B, human. This is the glyph for being human. And here we have the glyph of Kawak, which is the thunder god and power. So it's a very interesting system in a lot of ways. Very interesting system. And if you haven't availed yourself, you can go check this out, starroot.com/CGI. And I do use this as part of the everything reading. So I'll just, with a moment of self-indulgence here, if you'll allow me, I'll show you my glyph here, my sign, my day sign. And when I first did this, it really it spoke to me, right? It's like, okay, so I really dove into the Mayan calendar with Argueas and the dream spell. So this is where I am. I'm at the center of this quadrinity, and so the number is 13. And I've always felt like this is been kind of a mantra for my experience. I endure in order to evolve, transcending synchronicity. I seal the matrix of navigation with the cosmic tone of presence. I am guided by the power of birth. So when I first saw this, right, 13 is as high as you can go because it's based on lunation cycles. So when I saw this, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense, but it also kind of pissed me off. It's like, why do I have to endure? Why can't I just cruise through things? But as I've, evolved and gone through life, my first contact with the Mayan calendar or the Argueas version, I think was probably around, I don't know, maybe 93, 94. Yeah, I think it was it Angela Spilsbury who did the book on the Mayan day signs? Last name is Spilsbury. And I was really into it. I was very, very into it. And so, but for me, I didn't even realize that there was a long count. I mean, I thought this was it. This is how effective Jose Arguedas was at marketing his system. So eventually I found out there was such a thing as a long count. And then I was like, well, what's going on here? Who do I follow? Which one is which? And I began to think about, well, did this guy just completely hijack this thing? And is he a consciousness pirate? But I've come to appreciate both the long count and the dream spell. And a good friend of mine who is just a master at the Mayan calendar and the cycles and the wheels within the wheel. He basically, and I brought it up to him. I said, well, so, these things are off. Just like when somebody in the sidereal world says, well, these things are off. And I asked him about it. He says, well, just think of the long count as maybe being your rising sign. I'm like, okay, maybe I can wrap my head around that. And that the dream spell is maybe or the dream spell could be your rising sign, what you're evolving to in this lifetime. And the long count, kind of what you bring into the story. It's an interesting kind of idea to toss around and to try to reconcile in some ways. If you haven't played with the site, I do recommend it. It's a very interesting site, and it's a very interesting system to boot. And so there you go. And here we have the day signs, and this is where I am right here on the calendar. And we start off right here, and this is the sign that we saw yesterday, which is dragon. And it's very much like Aries, and it's all about instinctual energy, right? It's really just fire, instinct, dragon. And then everything resolves itself into the final sign, which is Ahau, and Ahau being the crown, golden consciousness. Christ, often very much referred to as Christ consciousness, here at the final sign of this cycle, this 13-month, 20-day cycle, all based on lunation, synodic phases. They're very interesting, very, very, very interesting stuff. And then there are tribes and families, and I found that there is a lot of resonance when I work with these and I look at the actual person. that I have been working with. And so these are very similar signs here. This is Keeb, also known as the warrior, right? And then we have Etsnab, which is about reflection. And then we have Kawak, the thunder being. This is the thunderclap. This is the shaking loose, right? This is kind of where we are now as it relates to our own situation in the year 2020. We are experiencing the thunder being in our own lives as it relates to our so-called consensual reality. Right? That's where we are right now. And every day there's a thunderclap, and the cacophony and the roar and the thunder is going to get louder and louder and louder. So a couple of things interesting happened yesterday as it relates to this ongoing debate around masks and prevention and cures. So that there were a group of doctors who were actually at the White House and, basically saying, hey, look, we are standing for something different. We are giving you an alternative point of view. And of course, we had the doctor from Houston, Emmanuel, who is just an absolute force of nature. And they were censored. They were censored. Their video was removed from YouTube. Any place you could go try to find that video, Twitter, censored. So Tucker Carlson played that video or parts of that video or parts of that press conference last night. Trump referred to that press conference. Trump actually tweeted about them. That tweet was removed by Twitter, which is really interesting. Again, and I bring this up because Paul Singer, supposedly one of Trump's financial backers, owns almost a majority share and stake in Twitter. And again, if you have not gone down the Paul Singer rabbit hole, I urge you to take 15 to 20 minutes out of your time today in order to do so, because Paul Singer is one of the probably most important people on the planet, and not necessarily in a very positive sense, but that he wields incredible power economically and could come in and perform the role of a thunderclap, and not in a good way, by the way, with a business like Cabela's, which Paul Singer forced into a sale because Paul Singer had bought Bass Pro Shops. And the way that, these mergers happen, they're often very much akin to regime changes, and that they will go in and they will use all the psychological tactics on a company that they want to buy and force a regime change. In this case, they were theoretically forcing, and I say theoretically because you don't know who's on the board of directors at Cabela's and, what kind of sneaky little handshake deals and back scratchies that they have going on with somebody like Paul Singer. So they said, look, we're either going to have to merge with Bass Pro Shops, and it's the equivalent of the financial taking the knee in a lot of ways. Where they have to do this, or they're going to come in and they're just going to be like Conan the Barbarian and take over anyway. So we may as well get something out of the deal. That's the mindset when we go into this whole idea of the hostile takeover, which was very prevalent. And unfortunately so. You have people like T. Boone Pickens and, all these traders. Mitt Romney comes out of that with Bain Capital, Warren Buffett. And these are hostile takeovers. These are hostile corporate takeovers where they target a company and they'll do everything in their power in order for that company to submit. And, there's all sorts of different strategies. And so the company does submit, then they become merged, and then they just pick what they need and strip the company of whatever they want. Bain Capital, of course, it's called vulture capitalism, by the way. And Bain Capital, we know about. We've seen this. This is one of the things that Mitt Romney has specialized in. Terrible person, by the way. Absolutely terrible person. But this idea of the hostile takeover really started off as being shocking. But now it's just sort of, how we do business or how they do business. There's kind of a psychopathic, not even kind of there is a psychopathic strategy, actually a sociopathic strategy, more sociopathic than psychopathic. There's a sociopathic strategy in both the intent and the implementation of a hostile takeover of a company. And so I could do a whole show on what Paul Singer did to Cabela's. And essentially, they create an environment of fear. But here comes the predator. The predator's coming in. They've already acquired your biggest rival in some ways in Bass Pro Shops. And now, you look at Paul Singer's war chest, and you're like, okay, we got up against this guy. So what happens is that Paul Singer will go in, or any of these hostile takeover firms, and they'll start buying up shares. They'll go in, they'll buy up shares, and they start to get a foothold inside of a business. So they buy shares, and then what they'll do is they'll look around and they'll start to make connections and relationships with people that are on the board of directors. And then they will begin to flip them and create allies within the management structure at a high level. And then when they have enough shares and they have enough allies inside of a company, then they can also begin to inject market conditions, or they can force their hand in some ways by doing something inside the marketplace. And then people will panic. The people that are inside the company who are maybe not a part of that situation will see what's going on, and it's almost like this cancer has invaded their company, which is not great. And so now at some point it's like, well, they're going to kill us anyway, so we may as well just sell. And this is what happened with Cabela's and Paul Singer through Bass Pro Shops. So they did. They sold their business to Bass Pro Shops, Paul Singer. So this merging, and once that happened, everything changed. And it was all about eliminating, in some ways, Cabela's as a competitor. And don't think for a minute, okay, that there is not an ideological subversion going on here as well, because there is. Cabela's, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is either located in Nebraska or Iowa. I know it's either Nebraska. I apologize for not having it right at the top of my head, but it was in a small town, and Cabela's employed just about everybody in this small town. The warehousing and the corporate office where people would go to work and do the accounting and all the things that were connected with that business. All in, I believe it's Kansas, was one small town. And when they came in, they being Paul Singer, aka Bass Pro Shops, it's like, you're done. We're moving operations. We're consolidating, which is what happens when they do mergers, right? It's consolidation. And so whoever wanted to move or needed to move or could have moved, or even if they wanted them to move, would go somewhere else. It might have been the Bass Pro Shop, by the way, headquarters. And that was it. Cabela's exists, but Cabela's as the heart of a community no longer existed. You could go into that area now and you're going to see a higher level of decimation. And it's brutal. And there's an ideological subversion there, because that is the heartland. Cabela's was a business. Whatever you think about hunting or whatever, Cabela's is a heartland business. And as a heartland business has certain types of values, right? And I guarantee you that the majority of those people that worked at Cabela's in that actual place, in that city, that small city, that big town, I guarantee you that they would fit into a very specific demographic. And the demographic that I'm talking about. Religiously, I'm sure that the majority of them are Christians. Genetically, I'm sure whatever kind of diverse distribution in that area showed up there, but I would guess it'd be predominantly white, okay, predominantly Caucasian. So what did we see? We saw a business just completely Hiroshima in the heartland. So it's not just going in and taking something over and taking over the competition. No, there's an actual strategy there, decimation, and not good. So I bring up Paul Singer because he has a close to majority share in Twitter, which you think, oh, well, here's this guy. By the way, he's a Leo, August 22nd. And Paul Singer supposedly is, now he and Trump apparently did not get along. That they were at odds. But then they sort of had a meeting of the minds, whatever that was. And then Paul Singer kind of got on the Trump train or vice versa. And I don't know how true that is, because this is a guy who owns a very high minority stake. I think he might be at about 48, 49% of Twitter at this point. So if this is supposedly somebody who's an ally of Donald Trump, why are tweets being censored? Why is it Eric Trump who's in Twitter jail? Why is this being allowed to happen? See, these are conversations and these are dot connects that I think are very important. They're very important. And again, if you don't have the time for this and you don't, it's like, I get it, right? People have lives. They have lives. But, when I look at these things and I connect the dots, it's like, what's really going on here? What is really going on here? And what is Paul Singer really attempting to do? And what kind of representation does he really have as a so-called ally of Donald Trump? You would think that at that level, being, just literally away from Jack Dorsey and knocking him over and taking over the whole thing, that he would be supportive of Trump. He would be supportive of this idea around free speech. And that is just patently false. And what have we seen with Twitter? They've gone hard after people like Stefan Molyneux, Rush V. They have really gone hard after people that circulate and repost Q material. It's very clear now that Twitter is engaged in the assault, the hardcore assault on freedom of speech and the people that represent that. And I deactivated my Twitter account about 2 months ago in June. We're kind of I think second week in June, I deactivated my Twitter account for a number of reasons. But here we have this supposed ally of Trump, Paul Singer, who's part of this sort of unholy troika of Sheldon Adelson and Bernie Marcus. And Sheldon Adelson, of course, being a huge backer of Trump, and Sheldon Adelson, a guy that theoretically has made a shit ton of money in Las Vegas and casinos. And look at what's happening in Las Vegas. It's becoming a ghost town. So what is this? You think Sheldon Adelson, by the way, is a very powerful person. If he wanted to, he could just totally squeeze this ridiculous governor of Nevada. He could squeeze him hard and say, "You're going to open stuff up." He could do that. There's so much corporate money in Vegas that all they would have to do is just tell that guy to go, jump, and he'd say, "How high?" But that's not the case. So Sheldon Adelson, remember, this is a powerful dude. This is the guy that really finally got a political figure to move the embassy, the U.S. embassy, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That's Sheldon Adelson. And Trump had to promise him that that's what he would do, that was part of the deal, that Sheldon Adelson would back him if Trump would do this. And Trump did do that. And he did it exactly for that guy. And you would think that a guy that powerful would look at the city around him and say, well, this is my bread and butter. This is my coin. I got to keep this thing open. That's not the case. Think about that for a moment. Think about that. Why would somebody like Sheldon Adelson just sit back and watch Las Vegas get ready to turn into a version of the Dust Bowl? That's going to be a very intense area. It's not an area that produces a lot of goods. Clearly, the weather is very difficult in Las Vegas. Once the air conditioning stops flowing, and it's not just casinos. Like there are small businesses. There's a whole, community that's kind of grown out of the casino business, and they're either connected to the casino business directly or indirectly. What's going to happen with those people? It's going to get very ugly, very, very ugly. So the real question here that you really want to begin to think about is, why is somebody like Sheldon Adelson allowing the golden egg of the goose to get cracked and literally turn into a kind of a Humpty Dumpty kind of physical destination, and being able to put back together again in a lot of ways? This is an important question. And it also probably ties into Paul Singer a bit as well. Why is Paul Singer, who's supposedly an ally of Trump, allowing what's happening on Twitter to take place? Is he really an ally of Trump? I don't believe he is. He's certainly not an ally of the American people. I can tell you that right now. This is a dangerous man, very dangerous man. He's also connected to Unit 8200. I don't want to get into that. It's a much longer dissertation and dive, but let's just say Paul Singer has been developing a group of cybernetic digital savants in Israel. And what he's doing with them is he's moving them into corporations inside of the U.S. and placing them at fairly high levels, whether it's AT&T or Verizon. Right, this is what's going on. It's another version of a kind of a hostile takeover in a lot of ways. So if you have a few minutes to burn today, go down the Paul Singer rabbit hole. I brought him up yesterday. I think it's an important talking point. Censorship seems to be the order of the day, whether it's Twitter or whether it's the platforms that allow people to make money. There was a group that showed up yesterday in front of the White House talking about alternative cures and what we could do in order to come at this idea of COVID-19 in a different way. So I'm going to show you the net effect of what happens when you stick your neck out. Let me do this. Give me hold 1 second here. That's not what I want. Whoops. Let's see, what do I want here? Let me do this. There we go. Let me bang on this. Oh, it says expired. Let me just see if I can bring this up again. Hold on. Website expired. Okay. So this is America's frontline doctors. These are the people, right? These are the people that were in Washington yesterday. And this is Squarespace, by the way. Website expired. The account has expired. So now their website is down. Holy smokes. That is something, huh? Squarespace. Squarespace is where their website is. And I'm sure that they're actually doing some kind of transactions through Squarespace. Look at that. Their website has expired. They took down their website. It didn't expire. They took down their website. Do you see what's going on here? They meet in front of the White House. They share alternative POV. And what happens? They pay a price. Their website is not expired. It got taken down. This is very heavy stuff. This is heavy stuff. These are heavy times that we're in right now. So these people, and by the way, right? By the way, they were there on behest of DJT. Now, this is not a situation where the federal government or DJT would go onto the streets of Seattle or Portland or any American city and meet force with force. This is a small website. This is Squarespace. I mean, it's not a website, but this is not a Fortune 100 company. They may be owned by a Fortune 100 company. So what is he going to do about this? Is he just going to sit back and say, well, that's the way it goes. Go find another website. And this is not an indictment on Trump, by the way. I just think it's important to see what kind of response there is around this. This is how the left, unfortunately, really works and operates. When they decide that they're going to cancel you, they're just going to cancel you. It's just the way it is. And how can people stage a counteroffensive or say, hey, look, we're not going to support Squarespace, which you probably shouldn't. And maybe, just maybe, if you're somebody who has a website that's on Squarespace, that you are, the biggest thing that you could do is maybe move your website. Maybe that would be something that would be valuable, or at least for you, that you could say that I didn't allow this to happen. I did not consent to what they did to this group. Move your website. If enough people started moving their website from Squarespace, then you get the counteroffensive on the left, and they would come in and they start buying domains and creating stupid, shitty little websites. I mean, this is where we are now. It's a we could be moving onto much higher ground. I mean, much higher ground. This is the frustrating part around sort of the macro experience around this. We could be we're like wasting our time. We're whatever this concept of time is, we're wasting our energy to try to create a beachhead so that a stupid fucking company like Squarespace can wake up and say, oh gee, maybe we did something wrong here. Maybe we should reinstate this website, which goes into a whole other point of discussion that if you are creating a website, you are having somebody host your website, you should probably really understand who's doing that and where their cojones are. That's important. I would definitely make that a prerequisite. Like I don't know why anybody would use WordPress to start a blog. Why? WordPress is owned by Google. Why would you do that? There are plenty of other templates out there, plenty of other platforms out there. So a lot of presence of thought, forethought, presence of mind and forethought can be very, very helpful and should be applied with any decision that we make, especially one where ultimately but did they know that Squarespace would do that? Did Squarespace show their true colors and start deplatforming and just removing websites? I don't think so. But in a time where people are listening to either the voice of the mob, the roar of the mob, or somebody inside of that space that says, look, this is not going to work. You got to get these guys out of here. Who knows what sort of mandates or dictates that they're following, mob rule or, the representation of mob rule inside the walls of the Citadel, whatever. They just made a very clear statement. You guys are out of here. Their videos were censored, removed. This is just one group. And this is a group that was summoned to the White House, by the way, on behalf of the president. So the president, this is going to be interesting to see what kind of theoretical power that Trump holds at the moment. I mean, can he even get a freaking website reinstated? I don't know. I'm being really honest with you here. I don't know. Now, there could be a whole other reality right now with Trump and talking in code. Yesterday at this press conference, and he had the number 33 displayed prominently in his press conference. It's like, oh boy. Trump is flexing his Masonic muscles. That's exactly what he's doing. And Trump is a Mason. He's admitted it. He was taught and tutored by a 33rd degree Mason, Norman Vincent Peale. He successfully, if I'm not mistaken, was able to resurrect the fallen statue of Albert Pike. That was him. Trump made that mandate. So this is going to be interesting. I think what he's doing, he's flashing. He's like, okay, I'm hidden in plain sight, right? So let's see what happens here over the next 72 hours with the doctor's website. I think it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting tell, but we certainly know that this censorship is rolling out. They're steamrolling everything in a big way, very, very big way, very big way. All right, what else do we have here? I found that's another story. I don't want to meander and ramble. Let's see. I want to leave you with some positive stuff today. There are actually some positive things that I want to help you out with here. Oh, by the way, this I will share with you. I was up very late again last night, and I noticed about 2 weeks ago. I didn't see the email. It just popped up as I was going through my emails, and I found that I had been given a privacy claim. Like somebody had said that I had a privacy violation. And it was on a show I did about 9 months ago. Who knows? Maybe I'll get the privacy bit here again today. I don't know. But here, I need to if I want this show to exist, I'm gonna have to kind of move forward in this. I don't want to show this thing. And it was a show from 2019. So this is very interesting. This is very interesting because what are we talking about? It was October 2019, almost a year ago. Let me show you what I was talking about. Where are we? I think this might be it. Let me just see. Roll the dice here. No. Oh, that's different. I was hit with a copyright summary status by Fox for playing the video of Tyson Fury singing Bye Bye American Pie. Apparently, that went away. Thank you. Good. Good on that. So it's going to be, let's see, it's going to be this one. I got both of these sent to me by Twitter or by YouTube in about a 48-hour period. This is the one that I'm referring to. Right here. So this is what somebody felt was a violation of privacy. And I was talking about this whole little kids thing. Now, you have to keep in mind, this is a website. This is a foundation. This is like a public deal. And they had another image, which I'm going to leave alone, because this is where theoretically the copyright or the private somebody mounted a privacy violation. What kind of violation are we talking about here? They used an infant for an ad. Okay. And it was an ad for this. And it was connected, of course, to the Little Kids. Welcome to the Little Kids Foundation. We love it. And that's all about infant massage. That's all I was talking about. And then almost a year later, I get the digital knock on the door saying that there is a violation of privacy rights for something that's public. Welcome to the brave new world there. And I really have not responded to it. I actually did respond to it. I did respond to it because, I wanted to. I needed to. It's like this. It came. I said this is an ad. This is an ad, and it was public. How can somebody claim there's a violation of privacy when the thing that they're promoting is public? I don't understand it. Can somebody help me out here? Are there any legal experts inside of Chatlandia? There's really no basis. There's no basis for being able to say that. It's ridiculous. Anyway, this is how the game works now. They'll go back and they'll look at videos. Let's go into cancel culture. It's one of not that I ever had anything salacious on my Twitter account, but I deleted it anyway. Like, just forget it. But this is what cancel culture does. They go through, they will look at your history. They'll try to find things that you've said or try to find things that you've published or things that you've talked about or things you promoted, and they'll bring it forward and they'll show this thing to whoever is the so-called arbiter of that experience, and they'll say, see, bad person, pull their plug. And it's all too frequent, all too common. And Greg Gutfeld has been really on this stuff. And he says that the people that participate in cancel culture, that there's not enough of a penalty or a price to pay if indeed they are wrong. You rarely do you even get an apology. You might not even get an apology, let alone some kind of compensation or restitution. for all intents and purposes is the mentality of the mob that's being activated and weaponized, and just finding people that have different points of view and they don't like it and they don't want to hear it. There used to be a time where people would file defamation suits against the National Enquirer. And in many cases, they would win those suits. Some cases, they would lose those suits. About a 60-40 proposition, I think. But the way the cancel culture is now, there's no weight. There's no weight of responsibility. And let's just say, for instance, you're, one of these little satellite groups that are part of this larger incubation, and your role is to go out and find people who have said things that might be inappropriate, right? How much money do you think their little foot soldiers have? Probably not very much at all. Maybe they're being paid $20 an hour to go through, here's a list of content creators, go through their content. And don't trust me, these people are out there. They also have algorithms that they use, and they'll look for certain words or certain images. They may have those tools at their disposal. But how much do you think they're really being paid? Not very much. So even if you were to launch a defamation suit or something along those lines, what are you going to get out of it? Not a thing, really. You might get a moral judgment. That's about it. That just came to me. I just saw that. I was like, wow, that's really weird. That's really that specific thing. Okay. I'm going to get on out of here because I said I was going to be economical, and I'm getting close to that economical point in time. So there are two things. I'm going to show you something that I think should give you some solace and some heart, actually, in the face of what we're going through. I reference one of my favorite songs of all time by Todd Rundgren. It's called Just One Victory. Just One Victory. And I'm going to show you a little victory. Before I do that, though, I do have a bit of personal news that when I say personal, I'm just sharing with you, and I want to expand the topic because it's important. And if you have a parent who has access to the internet or a cell phone or a personal phone or a tablet, you need to share this information with them, okay? My mother was the object of a scam yesterday. She got scammed. And I don't want to go into the specific details of the scam, but it was very, very sophisticated, and so sophisticated. And what happens now is they prey on elderly people who don't know a lot about the internet. In many cases, the elderly people are isolated. They're not going to go into another room and then ask the person that's in the house with them, hey, I just got this. I'm on the phone with somebody from Apple, and they say that I've been hacked. You see, they don't have that. They don't have that luxury in a lot of ways. So it is definitely predatory, and they have profiles of people. When I say these are the people who are participating in these predatory acts, and they could be from Kenya, they could be from Asia, Russia, wherever they emanate from. But they have statistical data at their disposal. They know who they're dealing with. They know exactly who they're dealing with, and they're going after elderly people because elderly people have resources. They've saved. They've saved their money, and it is really just horrific that these predators can move around. They got me, and I think I'm pretty sophisticated, but they got me with a very, very sophisticated sting operation. And what happened was they had somebody inside of PayPal. They had a call, somebody who was doing calls at home at PayPal, or had done that, or had access to that through a friend of theirs. Because I was actually getting scammed vis-a-vis a PayPal number, and guess what? A PayPal text, and PayPal didn't do any of it. That's how sophisticated this shit is, okay? Because normally the thing that they pulled on my mother and some other people that I know, that wouldn't be able to fly with me. But getting inside of PayPal and actually using It's like, whoa, So here's the thing you really want to share with your mother, your father, your grandparents, great aunt, or whatever. If a business, Amazon, Apple, PayPal, their bank, okay, please, if any of these entities call, you need to tell your mother, your father, your grandparents, great aunt, whatever, to put the phone down immediately, hang up, and call the institution that claims are calling them. Please pass this on. Pass this, because they're very sophisticated. I got a phone call from my mother, and she was in a state, and she said, some very bad things happened here today. And I'm like, really? What? I can't talk to you about it over the phone. And that was like a red flag for me. It's like, what? You can't talk to me about it over the phone? Why? So you better talk to me about it over the phone, because they get inside their heads and they said, you can't talk to anybody about this, because theoretically the Chinese or the Russian hackers could be listening. This is how sophisticated these people are. Not only do they steal data, but they get in and they create a temporary wall. And so then what happens if people get ripped off, which happened to my mother? It wasn't terrible, but it was enough for her to feel sick about it, is that they experience shame and they don't want to tell anybody. And they can go 4 or 5 days, a week, before somehow their conscience just can't handle it anymore. They got to tell somebody. And I don't blame them. It doesn't feel good to be ripped off. I didn't feel great, but luckily I was able to get all my money back, because I was able to prove to PayPal, look, here's the text. Here's, dudes, you got spies in the house of love there. Okay. So please share with people who are in this demographic, and please tell them not to respond to these calls where people say that they're from a certain company. They're not. And they're being targeted. Trust me, they have demographic information at their disposal. Very sophisticated operation. And they almost always involve using a gift card, mostly Target, sometimes CVS. Okay. It's awful. It's really awful. So please share this information with people that that are in that demo. Same thing goes for email. They'll say, oh, there's been a breach in your account. Please reset your password. Whoa. You don't want to do that. You got to educate your elders on that one too. If that's the case, tell them to not do anything. Tell them to pick up the phone and to call the institution. This is, again, we're just wasting so much time. As a effort, like, we're having to fortify the gates. We're having to fortify the gates because the infidels are inside the palace walls. They're inside the palace walls of PayPal. They're inside the palace walls of the White House. They're inside the palace walls, in many cases, even in our own minds. So if you have people that you love who are, in the demographic I'm talking about, please educate them. Take 10 to 15 minutes out of your day. Just reach out to them. Let's try to stop these abusive, predatory scum from literally terrorizing their lives and bleeding them of their resources. You're not going to hear about this very much on the evening news, and not a lot of people are even covering this on alternative news. It needs to be a discussion. It is a form of elder abuse. Hey, I'm almost 60. Why not? All right. So let me show you, let me end on a positive note. Let me show you the pushback. All right. Let me show you the pushback, because there are positive things happening. I don't, yesterday I said to myself, geez, I really didn't end on a positive note. I kind of turned on the flamethrower and just, torched the landscape. But, and I do think it's important to end on a positive note. So I'm going to show you something positive. Okay. Here it is. There are people that are pushing back on the world that we're talking about, the world that we're dealing with, like the world that is forcing us to continue to live in a smaller and smaller cubicle, small and smaller partition space, whether it's the four walls around us, whether it's even our own bodies, but pretending that these so-called masks are helping. Let me give you one example. Pro sports is over and done with, and I wanted to bring this to your attention, which I think is worth actually having a gander. It's a positive thing. A man against the crowd, as it were. So Stephon Tuitt is a football player. He plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a good player. He's a very good player. I'm not going to play. Oh, this is Donnie Jones. I like Donnie Jones. He's a Pisces. He had a really good series called Donnie Against the World. Donnie's star was rising, and I don't know what happened to Donnie. He's a Pisces, born March 8th. Very cool guy. And he would go all over the world and do these athletic events that were unusual. Like he went to the Scottish Highland Games. He's a very nice guy, very cool guy. But Stephon Tuitt plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he says, I'm not kneeling for the flag, and screw anybody who have a problem with that. Tuitt wrote on Twitter, my grandmother was an immigrant from the Caribbean and worked her ass off to bring 20 people over the right way. She had no money and educated herself to be a nurse. She living good now. There's this tweet. Is that going to be censored by Twitter? In 6 games last year, Tuitt finished with 22 tackles, 3.5 sacks. He tore his pectoral. He's a good player. Earlier in the season, Tuitt's teammate Cameron Hayward said the team would protest in unity, however they choose to do so. That is the son of Craig Ironhead Haywood. I think we want to stay united in what we do. You know what that is? That is groupthink, and that is pure pressure in what we want to do and what we want to accomplish. Coach T always told me if we win a Super Bowl, that's not enough for the city of Pittsburgh. We want to leave a lasting change on our community as well. So I actually want to address this a little bit. I need to address this because there are people who think that, pro sports are being just obliterated and great, pros good, we don't need them anymore. Bunch of baby crying ass, bitch millionaires. So I want to give you another side of the sports equation. And while on a philosophical level, I'm really okay with the fact that I won't be spending my Sundays this year wasting upwards of 6 to 7 hours watching multiple games. Thank God. I've been liberated. Thank you, NFL. But one of the things that football brings to the Black American experience, which I think is something that's not really discussed nor often talked about, is the fact that since it's a sport where a lot of young Black males matriculate into for a number of reasons, ultimately being the opportunity to get to a place where they could make some decent, life-changing, generational money. Okay. A lot of these young men come from very sketchy backgrounds. They don't have any father figures in their life in many cases. So when they get into a sport like football, the coach becomes the father figure. Football gives them structure, order, and discipline in a way that they would never have it in their life outside of football. Okay, football wasn't there. Now, I'm not saying that football is a substitute for having a father and having a family. That's not what I'm talking about. And there's always the toxicity level in football as well. Where you get kids, people are pampered, and the whole jock mentality, and players that are really, really good get away with stuff, which encourages a kind of sociopathic developmental behavior syndrome. Okay. That's why many athletes get in trouble again and again and again, because they're given second and third chances because of their skill set. Okay. That I don't approve of. But what I will say is that the other side of that is there are many, many success stories of young men who were right on that fine line of the street, and that football was a game changer, a life changer, and they'll talk about their coaches. and they're actually able to get their shit together. And in many cases, will have a professional career. And however long that career lasts, who knows? In some cases, it creates money that makes a real difference. One of the people that I like to talk about and promote is a guy by the name of Warwick Dunn. He used to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Very good player. Every year of his life, post Tampa Bay Buccaneer career, Warwick Dunn builds a house for somebody in need. That doesn't happen if Warwick Dunn doesn't have football in his life. Or maybe it happens, but it doesn't happen in the way that it happened for him. And so we're now looking at, as we approach fall, and cancel culture and the shutdown culture, thanks to the Democrats and the left, just terrible. And the right too, by the way. I don't want to say it's just trust me. The right's doing this too, right? So what is going to happen to things like high school football and college football? What happens if these kids who actually get into the game at a junior high level have nowhere to go? What are they going to do? Where are they going to take out the latent or inherent aggression that young men generally have? And if they've been doxxed and a group of people have been weaponized and they're not between the lines, they're not between the chalk lines, where are they going to be? They're going to be on the streets. And the thing that they theoretically could do in a structured situation, which is deal with their aggression, deal with their frustration, deal with their anger, and in a fairly controlled and disciplined and ordered way, that will be removed from them. It'll be removed from them. What kind of consequences socially do you think that will happen? How that'll go down? You don't think somebody will be impacted by that? I guarantee you they will. And I would say not in a positive way either. So, you may slag sports, but, for a certain group of people, this has been a very valuable experience for them and help bring structure and order to a certain part of their lives, which in many cases just was not there. And now they're getting ready to eliminate this thing. And there's a group of players inside the NFL, people like Richard Sherman, Michael Thomas, Michael Bennett, the usual suspects. And these guys have been promoting, kind of this woke culture, change, progressive change, all these things. And they've won, they've won. I mean, they now basically are running the NFL. They bullied Drew Brees into compliance because Drew Brees said he thought all lives mattered. That's not what you want to say. And they made it very clear. And they were doxing him. His own teammates were doxing him on Twitter and, smacked my head. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. And it was so intense for Drew Brees that he had to have his wife go on Twitter and basically say that everything about their life was wrong and they're learning new things now. I mean, this is how deep the level of prostration had to go, right, in order for him to be accepted back into the fold of his teammates. And and I say they, people like Michael Thomas and Richard Sherman and Michael Bennett and a whole host of other people, they may believe that they have reached the pinnacle of the mountain, that they have enacted social change. This is progress for them, right? But it's incredibly short-sighted because what they're doing is they're killing the golden goose. They're killing the exact same thing that incubated their talents, their intentions, and they're going to kill it because they're going to force the NFL's hand, and people are not going to go to games. They're not going to watch on TV. People are canceling NFL subscription. And who knows, maybe Pete Rozelle and all the owners are in on it, and they know that we got a nice little dirty asteroid shower coming in our direction. And it's like, we'll have our conscience clear if somehow, some way we get knocked on the cog and, knocked on the head, right? Conked on our noggin by an asteroid, because at the end of the day, well, guess what we did? We played the role of the plantation owner who theoretically freed the slaves, right? Maybe there's some sort of weird kind of like esoteric mind trip going on there that they can now be clear of their conscience and go ahead and do whatever you want with the leagues. Maybe there's something to that. Certainly there's no long-term strategy involved. There's very short-term strategy. Do I believe the players know that? Nah, I don't think they do. They know it at all. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because there's got one man standing against the crowd. Stefan Tuitt. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens when he is the anti-Kaepernick. Okay, I got one more story here for you. I just have to find this thing now. And again, I apologize because I had the tab open. And I'm going to get on out here. I know I said I'd be shorter, but I've really been monitoring my stream of consciousness as we go through this thing. Okay, so there's a town in Colorado that decided that they were going to take matters into their own hands. That apparently Antifa decided to pay a little visit to. And they were going to force the issue, as it were. Okay? This is what they were going to do. They were going to force the issue. Hold on a second. This Colorado town had another idea. They were operating at a different level. So as soon as the site, as soon as YouTube is finished loading here, I'm going to show you what a small group of, and some of you probably already seen this. I'm going to show you what a small group of motivated people. Now I was going to say motivated Americans, but this is an international. This is a global transmission. And by the way, the people of England, and we got a new viewer, listener from South Africa. Welcome to the show. And all you people in England, God bless you. I was thinking, maybe I need to change the time of this show so I can get, more people after dark. But, you people in England would not be able to see this in real time. So I'm aware of that. So I'm going to keep doing this in the morning because, I want to connect and make a bond between, your part of the world and our part of the world. I think it's important. Okay. So let me play this for you. Oh, I got to get the sound up. Hold on. Somebody sent me an email. I was doing this, popped up and grabbed my attention. Got my monkey mind. Grab my monkey mind. Okay, here we go. This is what you're capable of when even in a small group you're united in purpose and intent.
Pick up your freaking crap.
You should be able to hear this.
You're on ours. All right.
It's a little off-color language here, but let me back this thing up. I don't know the city. I tried to find out what the city was, but have a listen and see what's going on here. They're on horseback. And what's interesting about this video is that the sheriffs are present. Remember that. All right. There's a little bit of blue language. I'm giving you fair warning. So if you were offended by the speech of Allen Ginsberg, you may want to turn your volume down. Here we go.
That's awesome, man. We got a real sheriff in town, man.
Jeremy.
Come on. How successful was that? Can I have to pick up your guys' fucking trash? Really? Filthy fucks everywhere you go, you make a fucking mess. Learn to pick up after your own motherfucking shit. You're lucky to throw this shit at you right now. I have to pick up everything because they're filthy fucking things. Should have let him come down the street. Yeah. What's up? Get the fuck out of here. pick up your freaking trash. This yours? You're on ours. All right. What the fuck you know that? Is this one? Hey. Get out of here. Is this one of yours? This yours? Give it to him. Here, take this, and shove it. Here, this is yours. This is yours. You take that. No. Get going. Get out of town. Get out of town. Don't come back. Keep your stuff in Denver. Don't come back to northern Colorado. I don't have the fucking Good job. What a good kid. Load him up in the wagon and send him back to China. You let it go. We're done. Send him home.
Finish classes. I need my husband's classes.
Back to fucking way, you fucking fucking whack, you fucking trash. You turn your ass and don't push back. Take your fucking ass. Get out of here. Fine, are you crying? Are you fucking crying? Are you amazing how what you're protesting is defending your ass? Excuse the man, push the ass. Motherfucker, get out of here. Don't do it, don't matter. Keep moving. Keep fucking moving. Get out of here. Get out of here. Coming through on horse.
What you got there is you got some Wild West justice. You got some Wild West justice right there. The sheriffs were involved. The police were there too. Imagine that. I'm sure they're going to get a little phone call from Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, today. And who knows? Maybe the buses from Denver might return, and they may have double or triple the number just to prove a point. This is what you got to do, boys and girls. It's what you got to do. You know, you have to have a united front so that whether it's the physical manifestation or the metaphysical manifestation of the mind forged manacles, the weaponization of street level tyranny, you got to have a united front there. So good job, this small town, northern Colorado. Way to go. Way to show us how to make it happen. You know what's really interesting is that the guy gave the guys water. I thought that was great. He gave him the broken umbrella and he gave him here's your water. Like, he wasn't cruel. He wasn't going to go throw them out into the heat of the Rocky Mountain summer without some water. So they were compassionately kicking their ass out of town. Okay, let me just do a quick check in with you guys in chat real fast. Oh, I can't even. It's not. Oh, there it is. I remember you talking about Somali refugees last year. Yeah. What about some wild Southeast? What about it? We'll see if that happens. What happens when you let police do their job? So the police, it's interesting there because the mayor obviously was saying, listen, support the sheriff. Support the sheriff. So you had a cohesive front there. Oh, Kelly from Las Vegas and Somalis. Oh, okay. That's so. Yeah, apparently there's a lot of, and I read that, by the way. Kelly from Vegas, great resource, by the way. Wild West Justice. Yeah, absolutely. That's like a scene out of, Have Gun Will Travel or Rawhide or, I mean, it's like the bad blood comes into town, the sheriff, gathers the people and they have a confrontation and they force him back out into the dusty and unforgiving plains. Horse is good strategy. Yeah. Faith says how to bomb-proof your horse is used by police-mounted units. Oh, very interesting. You guys are sharp. Very sharp. Pisses me off they pass as hippies. Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking about that, Mary. It's sort of like they have. It's almost like casting Central. It's just weird, It's like, okay, well, I'm going to wear tie dye. I'm going to dye my hair blue, and it's just it's sort of like conforming to a sort of phenotype, and it's just, and I feel sorry for people in a lot of ways, who actually have to do that because they lose any real semblance of their individuality, and so by externalizing and say, look how outrageously individual I am, it's all really just I wouldn't even call it a fashion statement. But it is not. It's the externalization of some so-called individuality. It really, in my opinion, really isn't. So the more outrageous you look, the look at me, and how, strange and unusual, bizarre and surreal. It's like it's a real desperate attempt for that person to really understand who they are at a deep level, to understand their intrinsic value, their individuated self. And so what happens with many people is instead of really dealing with that, they externalize it and say, well, this is what I stand for. This is who I am. This is how I'm recognized. This is how other people will recognize me. And then is that really individual? No, I don't think so. All right. I'm out of here. Thanks for being here today. I appreciate it. Use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart to stay open to what's possible. This is Robert Phoenix. I will be back tomorrow earlier. I was just really trying to catch up. I was up to 4:00 in the morning last night, trying to get some stuff done. Friday, we're going to have an update with Dr. Eric Karlstrom. He has new and breaking information around the ever advancing technology being deployed in things like targeted individuals, stalking, technotronic, gang stalking. So we're going to get an update with him, and I'm working on a guest for the rest of the show on Friday. Be there. Thanks for your support. Love you all. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.